Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone who is joining us now. My name is Erin Castillo, and I'm the content creator for the Southern California Horticultural Society. We're going to get started with some brief announcements, and then we will get started with tonight's award ceremony. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome Steve as well. Before we get started, my name is Erin Castillo. For those of you who are just joining us, I am the content creator for the Southern California Horticultural Society. I will be moderating tonight's Horticulturist of the Year Awards for 2021, and we're honoring 3 very special individuals and their contributions to Southern California horticulture. As you are settling in, please share where you're joining us from. and if you knew any of tonight's recipients, so Bill, John, or Virginia. And please remember that at any time during the presentation, you are welcome to share comments or questions. Simply click the Q&A button from the bottom of your Zoom screen. I am actually joining us from Bill Baker's property, where I am lucky to live here. It's a great space. And as a reminder too, we'll be answering all of the questions at the end of the presentation. So give us just a second and let me get this going. Steve, I'm just going to put this on Facebook and then we will get started. Oh, Deborah from Redondo Beach is joining us tonight. And she loves attending the annual banquets. They are great, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
All right, well, without further ado, I present Southern California Horticulture Board member Steve Garischer, who will speak a little bit more about our organization.
Okay, my name is Steve Garischer. I'm current vice president of the Southern California Horticulture Society. And I'm coming to you tonight from Silver Lake. And it's last year when we were unable to meet in person to do our normally we have a wonderful dinner. We throw a great party honoring someone in the horticultural community, whether it be from recognizing their contributions to education, to botany, to scientific studies, to being a nurseryman or nursery owner, to just everything out there. And generally, one of the things that struck me was how all of these people leave such a lasting impression on those around them. That's one of the things that we do like to honor. And when we couldn't meet in person last year, when we were under COVID restrictions, we decided that instead of doing what we would normally do and just honoring one person, we would actually look back and pick some people who had passed and not been recognized, and do a posthumous award. And this year we were hoping to meet in person again, and it turned out that we couldn't do it again. It seemed like we were going to be able to, but then the timing didn't look right. It actually takes almost half the year to get the dinner up and running properly, and the silent auction and everything else that goes with it. So we decided early on to actually repeat the same process again this year. And one of the remarkable things in our board meetings as we were coming to this decision was realizing how many names there are out there of people who were not recognized while they were living and have left a lasting contribution in the world of horticulture. So tonight we're going to be celebrating 3 of those people. We've been doing this on a fairly regular basis since 1962. There were other awardees before that time, but it wasn't it didn't happen on a regular basis, and it wasn't actually recorded very well as to when those took place. There needs to be some research done into when some of those awards were given. However, I would like to point out that 2 of our 3 presenters tonight are past recipients of the Horticulturist of the Year Award, both Carol Bornstein and Lily Singer. And I think I got that right. I hope so. Anyway, so without further ado, I would actually like to turn this over to our first presenter tonight, and that is Lily Singer, who's also a board member.
Can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, somehow we've gotten a little ahead of this. Hold on a second. Wait a minute, what are you doing? Wait a minute, stop. Stop. Oh, don't you just love this stuff? Okay. Somehow it's on a timer, which I didn't mean it to be, I think. Okay, so we'll hope that doesn't happen. All righty. Hi, everybody. I do want to correct Steve. The other presenter tonight who is a hottie is Mike Evans.
I'm sorry about that, Lily. That's what happens when you get shoved in at the last minute.
It's okay. I made the same mistake 2 weeks ago. So anywho,
Anyway, Carol Bornstein's probably listening.
Oh, I'm sure she is. So let's see. Do I need to show my little face here? Yeah, there's my little face. Okay. All righty. So it is my honor and pleasure this evening to talk about Bill Baker. He was an old friend, although we lost touch in the last couple of decades of his life, but he was a really neat guy. And the more I researched into
Lily?
Bill's story, yes?
Lily, is there any way, I don't know if you can see, but on our screen, there are black boxes. I think that might be your control panel.
I see my, oh, let's see.
It might be your Zoom control panel or
Shoot.
maybe a different control panel.
My Zoom panel is up. So how do I make that go away? More. Hide the video panel. Did that work? No.
Yes, that worked on one of them. And now there's, oh wait, no, now it's back.
So my little face is supposed to be up there, which I don't care if it is or not, but how do we get the thing at the bottom gone? Aaron, where are you?
It might be another, I'm not sure if it's another application that you have open.
I should not, but you know what? I don't want to hold up this thing because of this. It's not going to interfere with what people are seeing. And maybe Aaron can weigh in at one point, but we're on a really tight schedule. So are you seeing the first slide with Bill on it? And then at the bottom, you're seeing mute, stop video and all that stuff?
We don't see the mute, but we see a box where that is for you. But we can see the slides.
Okay, good. I was pretty sure I had this on slideshow. So anyway, onward. So lost my pace here a little bit. So Bill Baker, here are his dates. He died far too young, and he died at age 62 very suddenly. And those of us that knew and loved him miss him and were just shocked all through the worlds of bromeliads and succulents and rare plants. Anywho, so wonderful picture of young Bill. So I love the shorts askew and the funky little shoes and socks and the wad of dirt he is holding. Bill was born in Bethesda, Maryland. He grew up in St. Louis and came to LA to Sherman Oaks when he was 11 years old. Gardening was in his blood. His father loved to farm. He went to Birmingham High School in Van Nuys, California. He studied at many local colleges to learn more about horticulture, especially at Pierce College. And he worked at West Valley Nursery, which is still in existence in Tarzana. And he had a very special relationship with the owners who carried his plants very, very early on. So I don't know how many of you have been to Bill's property in Reseda. We've held a couple of coffee in the gardens and plant sales there where his widow, Donna Marie, has welcomed us. This is the famous wall. Bill, in 1972, acquired a very large piece of property in Reseda, California, and it's now Tarzana, coincidentally across from my junior high school. And he walled it off with this most beautiful, beautiful of walls. I think it's about 100 feet stretching. And on the other side of the block, which also is his property, the wall has been continued it's really quite exquisite. You can see the mountains of some trip that he made, put in there, and a detail on the right of some flowers that he put in. At the main gate to his house, there's a flowering bromeliad pointing the way to the gate. I'm not going to be featuring much of anything about Bill's landscape design career because I didn't have pictures of that. But I do attest to the fact that he was very talented. He actually designed my parents' back patio, laid out the patio for them. And in keeping with this kind of work, he did the most beautiful starburst of flagstones, I guess sun rays of flagstones and bricks radiating out into the garden. Very, very talented and incredibly artistic in so many ways. So he moved to this wonderful piece of property, built the wall, and then proceeded to open a nursery, California Gardens Nursery. On his catalog, it reads bulbs, bromeliads, epiphytic cactus, succulents. But in fact, Bill had his fingers in so many different pies. He loved plants of all sorts. And I just gave a short list down there below of other things that he specialized in and loved very much. So you didn't just see bromeliads and epiphytic cacti when you walked in there. There were so many wonderful things to look at. And he played with all of them. He liked to grow and to hybridize and play with all of them. From a very early age, Bill loved to travel. And can you see what it says at the bottom, the little, what I wrote at the bottom, searching for bromeliads? I'm just curious. Somebody get back to me and let me know. So from a very early age, you love to travel.
No, Lily.
You cannot.
Correct.
Okay, well, this is problematic because I really do want you to see the plant names at the bottom, but I may have to just read them to you. So here he is, and I suspect this is in the 70s because of the color of his hair. It's pretty much all brown and he looks pretty young. And here he is in Guadalajara, Mexico. He was searching for plants and he was an early admirer of bromeliads. So here you see them off the cliff. Here are a few that he collected to bring back. He traveled all over, let me go back a second. He traveled all over Mexico, Central America, South America, to many countries in search of plants, and largely went on his own with compadres and friends and made arrangements and had a very good reputation as a plant hunter going down there. Later, he was associated with the Huntington, and we'll get to that later about what he did with these plants that he brought back. Let's see. He really loved Baja California and went there very, very often, possibly because it was so close and because it is such a magical place. If you are in Bill's yard, you will see Donna Marie's yard, I should say. You will see a beautiful Bursera microphylla, an elephant tree that he has growing in the garden there. He loved Baja so much that when he married his wife, Donna Marie, he took her to Baja for 2 weeks. They went there on their 2-week honeymoon. But Donna Marie told me they went all the way down to Cabo San Lucas and back. So very special place. And he's lucky he got together with somebody who liked to camp and have adventures like he did. So Bill was a lover of many kinds of plants, but bromeliads were a specialty, and he was pretty much the primary source for bromeliads in the region for many, many years. He was very, very active in the San Fernando Valley Bromeliad Society. He was president for many years. He gave classes, he lectured, he organized things and shows and meetings. He also brought his plants to many other places, many, many shows and sales all over Southern California. And in this particular picture, you see Bill. This is in the late 90s with a meeting of the San Fernando Valley Bromeliad Society at Bill's house. And in this picture, he is presenting a newly named Dicea Bill Palin, to 1976 Hottie, one of our honorees, Bill Palin, who is over at right with the brimmed hat. Many of us knew Bill Palin. He was a real sweetheart, and he was a specialist in bromeliads of all sorts and had an incredible garden in Brentwood and then later in Ventura County. Really special guy, and Bill named this wonderful plant for him. So I do want to take this moment to talk about some of the people that helped me with this program, because everybody I talked to on all levels basically said what a good guy he was. So, you know, it's one thing to be known for your nursery or for your travels, your collections, your hybrids, but to also be respected as a really nice man, I think would have made Bill very, very happy. Among others, I spoke with John Matthews, Brian Chan, Steve Ball, and Mary Kay Carroll, who were friends and fellow hobbyists in bromeliads and cacti and succulents. Also, Tim Thomas, although we didn't get to talk for long, one of Bill's oldest friends and who went on many early collecting trips with him. Karen Zimmerman and John Traeger at the Huntington Botanical Gardens helped out. And these people helped with information, anecdotes, and also photos. Then also Tim Harvey from the Cactus and Succulent Journal, Dennis Cathcart of Tropiflora Nursery in Florida, and last but not least, Randy Baldwin, another hottie of San Marcos Growers. And all of these people, as I said, contributed information. And, you know, some of the quick quotes: that he was serene and calm, that he was very patient with people at shows and sales. He was an all-around good person and a store of knowledge. Dennis Cathcart said he was friendly to all he encountered, and that Bill was the guru of Daikias. And you'll see some of Bill's plants that are that Dennis carried. So really wonderful reputation, as you can see. So no matter where you go in the succulent world, no matter what shows and sales you go to, you run into, quote unquote, a Bill Baker hybrid, whether it's on a Daikia, a Neoregalia, on a Haworthia, a Gasteria, a dwarf agave or aloe. Bill Baker hybrids, because he played with all these different things. One of his most famous introductions was Daikia Brittle Star. And there are a lot of brittle stars out there, and he crossbred them, and it got kind of confusing. So there are all these brittle stars out there and clones of brittle star. And from Tropiflora Nursery, here is a Daikia brittle star clone on the left. Then on the right is Daikia Tarzana. Bill had a wonderful sense of humor, and he loved naming plants. Sometimes the names were not quite kosher in terms of nomenclature, but he came up with some great stuff. And so he had Daikia Tarzana, and then he had Daikia Son of Tarzana. It's very typical of how he would play with things. And these are beautiful plants. Daikias are generally pretty easy to grow. Per Dennis Cathcart, Bill had a special affinity for Daikias and Hectias and other terrestrial spiny bromeliads such as these. So these are not Bill Baker hybrids, but Randy Baldwin features a lot of Bill's plants that he received from Bill, I should say, including these that he named after Bill, just because he got the propagule materials from him. So on the left is Pachyphytum Bill Baker, a wonderful fleshy succulent. On the right is Peperomia Bill Baker, with the wonderful common name of Bill's radiator plant. So those are two of the three things that are not hybrids, but are related to Bill's, thus the or ... Next are two other plants from San Marcos. On the left is another plant that Bill gave to Randy Baldwin at San Marcos, and Randy has named it Pachyvaria Bill Baker. That's a real beauty. And on the right is a plant that is quite popular these days, and that Randy is propagating quite a lot. And this is a form of Agave Victoria Regini that is Albo marginata, which is not a kosher name because you're not supposed to put the Latinized stuff in a cultivar name, but Randy is honoring what Bill gave it to him as. And as you can see, this is a wonderful Agave Victoria Regini, but it has the white margins on it, and it's a just exquisite plant. And this is being, as I said, grown by San Marcos growers, so you should be able to get it if you're looking for it. Let's see. Bill was the premier, by all accounts, the premier Daikia hybridizer in the world. Growers and nurserymen and botanists visited him, came from all over the world. He shipped plants to Thailand, to Europe, to many other places that had interest in these wonderful plants that he was growing and breeding. Bill had a very special relationship with Myron Kimnack, former director of the Botanical Gardens at the Huntington, and also with the Huntington Botanical Gardens. On the left is a cover of the Cactus and Succulent Journal showing Myron, who, by the way, was a 1979 hottie. Got a lot of hotties in this program. Myron was an amazing man. He was a horticulturist, a bookseller, a plant collector. He was a really neat guy. He died only a couple of years ago. And so Bill, in his early collections, would bring these things back, and he donated a lot of them to other collectors. He grew them on himself, and then he gave a lot of them to the Huntington, including things that he didn't know what they were. And the Huntington would proceed to identify them and make them available to the public. One of the earliest introductions from the Huntington, from Bill's collections, is Pachyphytum bracteosum, which is a beautiful Mexican little succulent with fleshy grayish leaves and unusual red inflorescences. So very, very pretty thing. And over the years, John Traeger looked and found that the Huntington Botanical Gardens has 65 pages of accessions from Bill over the years. That's an enormous number of plants. He really got a lot of stuff. The International Succulent Institute, or ISI, is out of the Huntington. This is a place where collectors of cacti and succulent and other succulents can get unusual or new plants through this program. And over the years, there have been many offerings of Bill's plants, including aloe and bromeliad hybrids. And this year in the 2021 catalog is Dicea ruby snow. Pictured here, a very beautiful thing. Now I'm going to read a little bit to you, and I hope you'll bear with me. So this is Echeveria bakeri. It's quite an honor to have a species of plant named for you. And in 1991, a beautiful new species from Bolivia was named in Bill's honor by Myron Kimnack. This was a plant that Bill had found in Bolivia. And I'm going to read to you, I've got to get this off of my phone, 2 short
Lily,
paragraphs.
we are running close to 15 minutes now.
This is like the second to last slide. So I'll read really quickly, or I'll paraphrase. So in February of 1983, Bill Baker of Reseda, California, found an attractive white-leaved Echeveria in a canyon a few miles west of Cochabamba, Bolivia. He gave the plants to the Huntington Botanical Gardens, and when they flowered, it was clear that yet another distinctive new succulent had been discovered. May of the next year, Bill accompanied a group from the Huntington down to Bolivia, took them to the type locality, and they brought back a few plants. And this is were also given to the Huntington. And then this is the paragraph I'm going to read. This is from Myron's writing. And I'm going to go to the last slide. Okay. So Myron wrote in the publication of this new species in the Cactus and Succulent Journal, "It is a pleasure to name this beautiful new Echeveria for William Baker, an enthusiastic plant lover, nurseryman, and garden designer. Bill has made several plant hunting excursions into Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. His wide knowledge of plants and his adaptability to the rigors of collecting made him an ideal traveling companion on our exhibition." And so this is Bill, and one of Bill's great loves and collections was Amaryllis belladonna. Here we see a white version of it that is offered at San Marcos Growers. That is the wrap up. He died far too young. Who knows what other plants he might have brought into us, but left behind a great legacy of, oh, I forgot to mention, what he left behind were not only incredible slide collections and plants, but amazing field notes. So all of this go to contribute to, again, a great legacy of horticulture and a great contribution to Southern California horticulture. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, stop share. And I will introduce Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going to be talking to you about John Doorly, the second of our 3 honorees for the evening. Mike Evans is co-owner of Tree of Life Nursery in San Juan Capistrano, the largest grower of California native plants in the state. And he's a hottie from 2 years ago. I think I've got that right. And we were very, very happy to honor Michael for all the work he's done over the years. So now you get to take it away.
Thank you, Lily. It is I'm on, yes. Hello, everybody, good evening. It is my distinct honor to present this award posthumously to John Doorley, an expert horticulturist. And I know that his widowed wife, Kathleen Doorley, has tuned in, and I hope some of his family, sons and daughters and grandchildren, may be with us tonight too. That's one of the advantages of Zoom meetings. John Doorley was the director of horticulture at the Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden for 20 years, from 1967 to 1987. During that time, he also consulted with the city of Claremont, the Claremont colleges, other municipalities, botanic gardens, especially on trees, solving problems. And after his retirement, stayed active as a consultant, sometimes working with Ray Walsh. They put together a park. I got a chance to get involved a little bit in Redlands called Caroline Park with Dr. Harold Hill. John co-authored a book with Dr. Lee Lenz, which is called California Native Trees and Shrubs, and is a standard for all native plant enthusiasts. And John was an incredible inspiration to me and to my business partner, Jeff Bond, when we were just starting Tree of Life Nursery. His generosity with his information and knowledge and experience. There was probably no one in the horticultural world that had a greater effect on my life than John Doorley. And this is why I'm especially honored to be part of tonight's ceremony honoring him. John was born in 1922 in Scotland, and he served in the Royal British Army Royal Artillery from 1939 to 1945, which, if I have my history right, are the years of World War II. He was stationed at Gibraltar. After his service to his country, he took formal training at the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he went on to work there. That's a no-nonsense place to take horticultural training. In 1952, John immigrated to America with his wife and his first son of 3 months age at the time, and where he answered the call to become the head gardener at an estate in New York called the Holmes Estate, Old Westbury, where he was the head gardener. He also later spent some time in Ohio working at a small estate called the Dewey Gardens in greenhouses. Shortly after that, in 1956, John answered the call and became the superintendent of the Morris Arboretum at the University of Pennsylvania. He was there for 11 years, and in 1967, John moved his family to Claremont, California, where he was answered the call and was brought on to become the superintendent, later to be called the director of horticulture at Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden. The amazing thing about that little story is that he came out by himself for the interview and called home. This is what his wife, Kathleen, told me at one point, and mentioned the sun and the citrus trees with fruit on and the snow-capped mountains just behind Claremont and the kids playing in the pool at the hotel, other details about Southern California. And she and the children in the house back in Pennsylvania were yelling, "Take the job, take the job." And we're very fortunate here, all of us in California, that he did. Kathleen had just shoveled about a foot of snow that same day. So they did come to Claremont. And at that point, John, think about this now, formal training in Scotland, experience in Pennsylvania, and he comes into Claremont, California to take care of the living collection for a garden which had been put together by Susan Bixby Bryant. And I'm just going to read off some of the names of the heavy hitters that were involved in building Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden in the years prior to John's arrival. Ernest Broughton, the landscape architect, Ralph Cornell, Theodore Payne, Leroy Abrams, Carl Wolf, Liberty Hyde Bailey, Willis Lynn Jepson, Alan Chickering, Terry Stevenson, Philip Munns, Frederick Law Olmsted, Percy Everett, William Hertrick. Percy Everett is a Haughty Award winner. We'll see in just a minute on one of the slides I have brought. And his daughter, Kathleen Chester, and her husband, Bruce, are watching tonight. And we're very honored to have you with us as well. So this information about Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden can be found in a very recent edition of a journal called Eden. You may be familiar, it's the Journal of the California Garden and Landscape History Society. And a certain author called Linda Lee Warlow wrote a very extensive and informative article about the early years of Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden. And you can find it in this issue from a couple months ago, spring 2021, actually. And most of the information that I have to present tonight about John to all of you comes from personal experience and from questions and answers from Kathleen. So Erin has graciously offered to help me with the slides. So if we could get the first slide up now,
You got it.
please. Okay, so this is where we are and who's here with us. John Doorly is being honored along with the others tonight as Horticulturist of the Year for 2021. Next slide, please. There's a cultivar manzanita called Arctostaphylos John Doorly. Tree of Life Nursery was privileged to introduce it by that name, and I'll give a little more detail in just a second. Next slide, please. Okay, this poster is one that was at the front of the room in 2019, which was the last time that the SoCal Hort met face-to-face for the Haughty Banquet and Awards Night. You see my name at the top, but ignore that for a minute and look down at the very bottom right-hand corner, Percy Everett. Among those, and William Hertrick, who I just mentioned in relation to his involvement in the early years at Rancho. Those are in those years that I guess the society isn't quite sure exactly where, when they got there. You're welcome, Bart. Thank you for the mention there too. I just saw a chat. I don't know if everybody else did as well. So Percy Everett is the man who retired on John Doorly's hire at Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden. So I think it's very significant that if there were a poster tonight with the 2020 names on and tonight's 2021 names on, that Percy Everett's name would be among the first, and John's name would be among the most current. In this list are many, many people who I can assure you depended on John Doorly for information about native plants. Probably everyone on this list, and certainly everyone that ever needed or had a question about a native plant, whether it was Bob Perry or Bob Smouse or Carol Bornstein or myself or Fred Lang or Randy Baldwin. And I'm just looking at Bart O'Brien, of course, took over the same position when John retired, and Bart is the 2005 Haughty according to this poster. So point I'm trying to make is that John had a huge influence on the general public of Southern California with his position at Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden, but also on many, many people within the horticultural trade. Could we have the next slide, please? So there are not a lot of pictures that I was able to find, and I'm not a really great sleuth on the internet, but Steve, no problem. I barely made it on time myself. Here's one. John is in the khaki shirt there behind the big hole, which is being prepared for the planting at the Morris of a Cornus officinalis. So again, I'm trying to imagine from our point of view today, a man with this training and this experience in these climate zones, just showing up at the world-class institution, which is Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden, now called the California Botanic Garden, and becoming an expert in native plants in no time at all. So this is a true plantsman that we are honoring tonight. Next slide, please. Aaron, please, next slide. Thank you. And so we ask, who better than John Durley from Scotland to plant a heath garden at the Morris Arboretum? And if I can kind of figure out what's going on here, looks like we're doing a turf replacement, which is near and dear to my heart in the native plant world today, but it's being replaced by a heath garden, complete with some Highland Scotland rocks, I hope. Anyway, there's an old picture from 1963 from the Morris. Next slide, please. Close to home, on a visit to the Tree of Life Nursery in the late 90s, and he and his family would visit occasionally, and we were honored to have and to meet many of his siblings and his grandchildren, and of course he and his wife would come together. But here is a flat of rooted cuttings of Arctostaphylos John Durley with our propagator Gloria Castillo, and there is the plant. Interestingly, this plant on the left-hand side of your screen there that's growing in the ground has the Yankee Point just behind it. That's an old plant here in San Juan Capistrano. And the landscape gardeners managed to kill every other one. And that's why all the blank space behind that, those healthy plants, by watering them too much. So then they just shut off the water. And these plants thrived. So this is one of the best, if not the best, mid-sized manzanitas for the California landscape. Next slide, please. Here's John at a ceremony at the Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden when he and Dr. Lee Lenz were being presented the Horticultural Award by the California Native Plant Society. I don't remember the exact year, but this is John Durley at his finest. He never looked shabby, whether it was with khaki gardener clothes or dressed in a suit and tie. The man was the epitome of the definition of a gentleman and a generous person. He influenced me in a great way in my nursery experience, just with his stories. One quick one was that working at the Morris, after work, somebody brought in a dormant twig and wanted to know what it was. Okay, that's a dormant twig, everybody. They're trying to identify a plant from a dormant twig in the winter. They couldn't figure it out, so they hopped in a car and drove several counties away to see the tree in person, arriving home after midnight. This kind of passion is what inspires all of us to do what we do. Next slide, please. So Mrs. Durley, Kathleen, please accept this award presented by the Southern California Horticultural Society for John Durley, the Horticulturist of the Year for 2021. Thank you for sharing him with us and sharing your life tonight with us. We are richer as a society because of the contributions of this expert propagator, always willing to share his knowledge and experience, and always eager to learn from others. This expert in diagnosing and treating plant problems and diseases, pests, etc., especially with native plants, and this expert man in keeping plants, any plants, super healthy and ready for public viewing, whether it be at the Royal Botanic Garden or in private estates, at the Morris, at Rancho Santa Ana, and in many places where he had some influence. John Durley, the gentleman, the plantsman, the horticulturist, the native plant expert. We thank you, Mrs. Durley, for all that you and he have done for our community. So I am told at this point to move on. My timer says that I might have fit into my allotted time. So I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Paul Mills, who will speak to us about the Hottie recipient, Virginia Hayes.
Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. It sounds like I'm the only non-Hottie presenting tonight. I'm a little ambitious in my slides, but I've written down my notes, so I'm going to move pretty quickly. I'm extremely honored to be here, and I know Virginia would be too. Virginia Hayes had a remarkable career as the curator of the living collections at Lotus Land that spanned 25 years. To me, she was a mentor and close friend. She's missed greatly at Lotus Land by staff and many of our longtime volunteers and docents who she trained and educated personally. She retired a year prior to her passing, and the institutional knowledge lost is immense, and I think of her daily. In the 1980s, while raising 2 children and getting her Bachelor's of Science in Botany at UCSB, Virginia started working for Santa Barbara Water Gardens. Water plants were always her thing. Later, she went on to manage the company, and during this time, she and her business partner were founding members of the International Water Lily Society. Virginia went on to buy the Santa Barbara Water Garden Care, the maintenance installation branch of the company. And as early as 1988, she was actually doing contract work in the ponds at Lotus Land, maintaining the ponds, excuse me, and increasing the water plant collections. Virginia was hired at Lotus Land in 1992, originally applying for a ground staff water garden position, but she was quickly deemed overqualified by Director Emeritus Steve Timbrook and was hired on as associate curator. When then curator Chris Enright left, Virginia quickly moved into the position of curator. She also took up residence here at Lotus Land, living in what was originally called the dormitory, a small cottage that sits on the north side of the main house. This would have been one of Virginia's early field trips. This is probably 1993 or 94, because it's before I started in 95 at Lotus Land. Mike Ivan, Director of Grounds and Facilities on the left, John LaFleur, Plant Healthcare Coordinator, and they were visiting Merritt Siggs Dunlap, who in 1966 had written to Ganawalska to bequeath his collection to Lotus Land. Luckily, he changed it to a donation and we moved it up in 2001, but that's a whole different story. Over the years, Virginia represented Lotus Land nationally and internationally at many different conferences and really became the face of Lotus Land. She attended and presented at numerous conferences on cycad biology, both in Australia, Mexico, Panama, China, Thailand, and beyond, and at the 1998 BGCI Congress in Cape Town. On the left, I think this is a 1999 conference in Florida at Fairchild, possibly. She's greeting Andrew Vovides and Miguel Angel from Mexico. And then on the right with close friend and Lotus Land Research Associate, Jeff Chimnick. And of course, she would attend the post-conference tours where you go to see cycads in the wild, nothing better than that. This is in Vietnam, flanked by Stan Walkley and Willie Tang there in front of her. Whoops. Virginia's highest curatorial priorities were to expand and preserve the amazing historic collections here at Lotus Land, and the international recognition that has been bestowed on Lotus Land is to some degree because of her work. On the left, she's again with Mike Ivan and then Director Mike Bush. Here we're receiving the first introductions of Willemia nobilis, Wollemi pine. And on the right, with a hottie, Don Hodel, placing his collection. It came to Lotus Land in 2002, and here it is being planted out in We already had a Camadoria garden, but now it houses Don Hodell's reference collection, and that's Esau Ramirez on the right-hand side there, ground superintendent. She really knew the importance of plants with provenance and tried to build the collections around that. She participated in 2 joint CICAD collecting trips to Mexico, with Montgomery Botanical Center and Clavijero Botanic Garden in Mexico. Many of these plants are now critically endangered in the wild, but they thrive here in the garden at Lotusland as an important safeguard against extinction. We have researchers come for sampling, we propagate these plants. And innumerable renovations and garden improvements happened during Virginia's time. This is in 2006 when the rose garden was completely renovated. Previous roses in there were suffering from infection from armillaria, oak root fungus. So all the soil was excavated, French drains put in, new soil put in, and it was just a huge success. One of many, 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 many. Virginia often acted as curator of the non-living collections as well, cataloging the library, photographic archives, and Ganawalska's historic and personal archives. Madam's unique personality and remarkable life story were things that Virginia absorbed, studied, and even embodied to a certain degree. Sometimes Virginia would have a feeling and make a change in the garden and later find a picture that it had previously been like that under Ganawalska. She played a major role in developing and improving the plant records database. We were in one of the early gardens to start digitally mapping our collections, and that was because of Virginia. She got Lotusland very involved with APGA, the American Public Garden Association, as a board member and a reviewer of the APGA plant collections for the APGA Plant Collections Network, and also had Lotusland CICAD collection accredited as part of the Plant Collections Network. Virginia ultimately went on to get her master's degree studying the floral development of Nelumbo nucifera, the sacred lotus. That's her master's thesis on the left there. She was regarded as a world expert on the plant. She traveled throughout Asia and the United States, getting samples for her studies. And at one point was the cultivar registrar for Nelumbo. She was also called out to consult on the declining lotus populations at Echo Park Lake when they were decimated by, I'm not sure what, but she probably knows when that was happening in the early 2000s. That lotus on the right-hand side there is the actual original lotus from Echo Park Lake, because a horticulturist had taken a few pieces prior to the plant's demise and then went on to propagate it to the point that, well, it's back in the trade now. She was very involved in the local community, and it seemed that everyone in town knew, loved, and respected her. This is her preparing a floral arrangement for the Santa Barbara Art Museum as part of a display. She was a founding member of the Santa Barbara Horticultural Consortium, part of the Friends of Franceschi group working to save and improve Franceschi Park. She was a judge for the Santa Barbara Orchid Show, Santa Barbara County Horticultural Society board member, and has received the Jacaranda Award from Santa Barbara Beautiful for her work within the community, local community, and also the Bouquet of the Year Award from Santa Barbara County Horticultural Society, their highest award. She was also a prolific writer, having written for numerous journals and plant societies, and had what I think was the longest running column in the Santa Barbara Independent, our local weekly newspaper. And she also wrote for every Lotusland newsletter during her time at Lotusland. She was also a founding member of the Santa Barbara Tree Diversity Committee. And I'm glad Mike showed that list of hotties, because there's quite a few right here. See Virginia, there's Jeff Chemnick, there's a couple faces I don't recognize, I'm sorry. Kathy Musial, of course, Don Hodell, Randy Baldwin of San Marcos, Growers, Jim Henrik, and then Matt Ritter there. and even a larger group meeting here at Lotus Land at one point. Virginia did the early legwork for our now signature plant auction, Exceptional Plants, which, by the way, is back in person this year, October 9th. If anybody's interested in coming, there's still some tickets available. It's a great event. On the right, you have Leland Walmsley, landscape architect. To the right of Virginia there in the picture is sort of an extended family member, Tom Cole. If you don't know him, he owns Cold Spring Aloes. He also does humanitarian work in Central Africa, and during his free time, he explores for aloes, having described and introduced a few different species. He credits Virginia for really encouraging him in his early days in the field to just document everything he does, sees, and where he goes. And then to the left, Jeff Chimnick, again, cycad expert, Lotus Land research associate, owner of Aloes in Wonderland, a botanic garden / nursery. And Jeff wrote about Virginia, saying, Virginia's impeccable reputation and her comforting Mother Earth aura, which always assured everyone that everything was going to be all right. She was always striving to protect the integrity of the gardens, the quality of the horticulture, and the historical perspective that embodied Madame Ganowalska's vision. This was the work ethic that became synonymous with Virginia Hayes. Here she is exuding that Mother Earth aura at a Members Family Day event at Lotus Land. Here she was dressed up as the Queen of Recycling. I can tell this is 2003 because that's when we were installing the Sig's cactus collection here at Lotus Land. She's the one that picked renowned garden designer Eric Nagelman to design the Dunlap Cactus Garden. That's Eric there with his glasses on, and he's gone on to do a lot of additional work. And it's thanks to Virginia that we've developed such a wonderful relationship with Eric as well. Here she is with Ann Dewey, who is our original director of development at Ann's retirement. And Ann loves to tell the story about the time that the royal family of Qatar came to visit Lotus Land for a tour with Virginia. And they showed up, they were very cordial yet serious, and stated that they only had 45 minutes for a tour. 3 hours later, they came back at the house laughing and carrying on and engaged with Virginia. And this is really how she affected people. She was just natural, confident, unflappable in any situation, and just completely unpretentious as well. This is us moving into our super cool shipping container office where I am now. We were previously in the main house, but really love this space. And then look what we have here. This is a party hosted by Lotus Land for Carol Bornstein's going away party when she left Santa Barbara, whenever that was 10 or 15 years ago, I'm not sure. So we have Virginia, John Black, Yvonne Chin, Janet Hunter, and Lynn Woodbury, and there, of course, Carol. My favorite picture. As written by Bob Craig, teacher, mentor, author, plant geek, photographer, environmentalist, mother, scientist, webmaster, and friend. Virginia's wonderful spirit and amazing breadth of knowledge are quite irreplaceable, and Lotus Land will forever be grateful for all she has done for the garden. Thanks again, honored to have been here and honored to have presented on Virginia.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you to all of our presenters as well for sharing their stories and their experiences with all of our recipients. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them. We've been getting a lot of really great comments from viewers. Deborah, for example, says that Bill was so generous by donating some of his plants to South Coast Botanic Garden after sales he participated in over there. And she was very impressed with his talents and sharing them. And then Bart also mentions, he says, thanks, Mike. Linda Lee Warlow. For your information, Bart O'Brien clued me in to tonight's presentation. He helped me many years ago write a piece of the RSABG Volunteers newsletter, Oak Notes, about John. And then John Dorley's manzanita grows in his garden, and he talks to him regularly. And then from Daniel, during the 1980s, as Rod Walbach and I were working on the Golden West College Native Garden, we would visit Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Garden as often as we could get up there, and often get together with John and later John and Bart both. What a treat for them to talk with someone so knowledgeable, generous, and humorous. Such an encouragement. Never made us feel like the relative newcomers to natives that we were. Wonderful person. It was so nice years later to be part of the celebration when John and Lee Lenz were both honored with the CNPS Horticulture Award. And then Daniel also shares that Mike has written a wonderful essay about a person who really inspired him and Jeff Bone while they were developing Tree of Life Nursery. And that person happens to be John Dorley. So there's a link to the article if you want to read that. And then from Carol, thanking all of the panelists today. Thanks for sharing these stories and images about Bill, John, and Virginia. We're getting a lot of great comments about the great photos and just a wonderful program. Joseph says, great tribute to all of the honorees. Thank you all. Please come to the exceptional plant sale at Lotus Land if you can. Yes, Lotus Land. Paul, did you want to mention one more time that date for the plant sales?
Sure thing. Like I say, it's become sort of we call it now the ultimate plant party. This is our 10th year doing it. Of course, last year was virtual. The date is October 9th. The auction, it's a huge silent auction and then a live auction. Jeff Chimnick is our live auctioneer. And if you know him at all, it's worth the price right there. And it's from 1:30 to 5:30. And what other details? You can buy tickets online. In the name of COVID, we are trying out an online bidding auction bidding system this time around. We've used it for Lotus Land Celebrates, but it's just a great time. So take a look on our website and please come visit. There's a lot of hotties there.
Actually, Paul, we have a question for you from Carol. Are there any plants named after Virginia?
Not that I know of, and we should really do something about that, shouldn't we, Carol? Yeah, I don't think so.
And then I do have a question here from Deborah, but this one is more of a technical question. Deborah, is there any way to know who is on the call? There is not a way to see the other participants. However, you can see the panelists that are here. And yes, Carol agrees, Paul, that we do need to name plants after Virginia now.
I saw that. Great.
Well, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or to put them in the Q&A section. And while we wait on a few of those, I do want to announce our next webinar. So it's a Zoom webinar. It's not an in-person meeting. Will feature Joanna Silver, who is the former Sunset editor and author, and she will be discussing growing weed in the garden. That'll be really interesting. It's going to be on Thursday, October 14th. So back to our regularly scheduled second Thursday of the month. And then in November, we'll be joined by Maddie Williams, a landscaper and urban planner, for a discussion on notable African Americans in horticulture, which is also going to be super interesting. And that will take place in November. So on Thursday, November 11th, right here on Zoom. So no in-person meeting yet. So keep an eye out for those details for both webinars. And you can always find that information on our website or on our social media accounts. And if you've benefited from tonight's webinar at all, or any of the content that we've posted or shared online, please consider donating whatever you can to our organization. This is usually the time of year that we do our fundraising, at the annual Hottie Awards. So we do feel it. And a lot of our revenue comes from in-person events like our field trips or Coffee in the Garden series. So in the meantime, excuse me, know that your contributions, they are appreciated and they help power our Zoom webinars too. And you can make donations on our website at excuse me. Oh man, I'm falling apart right now. You can make donations at socalhort.org/donate, or even better, become a member with membership starting as low as $10. So visit socalhort.org/join to become a member. Thank you, everyone. As you can see now, I'm really falling apart. Thank you for joining us tonight. Stay tuned for our next webinar information, which will be coming up at least by the end of the weekend. All right, have a good night. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to our presenters today for sharing their experiences and stories about our 2021 Hottie winners. So good night and thank you.